Hey friends, so I had an urge to speak, and yeah, I wasn't entirely sure. I don't know if I'm gonna make this a podcast or do a video or whatever. But anyways, whatever format it's going to come in is the format that you are going to see. um, yeah, I've been learning a lot more about human design lately. You guys know, if you guys have been following me for a while, then you know how much I appreciate human design to begin with. But I've kind of like developed an understanding of these deeper layers of human design that and have been experimenting with it as opposed to just absorbing the information, which is a new experience for me because I'm someone where it's like I'll read all about it, but never really like put it never really apply it. And the entering the experiment of actually um, putting this stuff into play in my day to day life has been super interesting. So, I wanted to discuss a couple things that I have learned about as of late in the hopes that, maybe it's something that you guys would be interested in learning more about yourself too. But, I'm a person where I am fascinated by people's lives. Um, they're little idiosyncrasies, like little things that, they find interesting or that annoy them or whatever. I have a complete fascination in it. And so I learn from that in tandem. So it's like I have this interest in learning about people from that perspective, but then it also helps me understand myself. And I think like I don't know if you guys can relate to this, but to me, I am to myself what I least understand in my life. I understand myself the least, and I think that that's actually a really interesting concept when you think about it. Of like, I live in this body, in this mind, day in and day out, and it is me that I understand the least. Um, and I've been learning more about that too, about that concept of where that comes from. And one of the things that I found really interesting is that based on some parts in my chart, which I've been like, kind of learning from more the genetic matrix element of like understanding, some of those finer details that come up in your human design chart from there, that I am really good at seeing for others. Like I have it's an effortless ability for me, right? I think that's why when I was practicing naturopathic medicine, I was so good at it to the point where I was actually starting to get bored, just because it was so natural to me, and I felt like the layers of the understanding that I wanted to get to with people was not necessarily from a health perspective, but more from like um, a life perspective of like, why do you do the things that you do? How do you do the things that you do, and why do you do them that way? Even so, that's yeah, maybe that's anyways, I'm thinking out loud here, but maybe that's part of the reason too why I started to get a little like I was really good at what I did, but at the same time I was starting to get a little like it wasn't deep enough, from a perspective where it wasn't like um, me observing someone in their nature and offering them guidance from that perspective. It was more just based on like one specific like health thing, like acne, for example. Anyways, I digress. So where was I going with that? Um, what I was trying to explain to you guys is that I'm really good at seeing for other people. I'm really good at observing their environment and the things for them, and bringing up like my observations of that person. Mind you, also like I do have a Gemini sun, so it's like all realities are the reality, and so there is no right or wrong or anything like that. So like my observation of someone, I'm very aware is my observation and not necessarily true for them. Maybe on some level it's like a subconscious thing, I'm not sure, like for that person, I mean. So I just find that really interesting too, where it's like we're just living in these like layers upon layers upon layers of reality that yeah, really fascinating. So anyways, going back to I'm really good at seeing for other people, but not really so good at seeing for myself. And I need to talk things out in order to gain an understanding or an awareness of like, why I do the things that I do, or why something's bothering me or whatever, which I think has to do a bit with the splenic authority bit, where I don't even know why I'm making this video or podcast or whatever it's going to turn into. I don't know. I felt compelled, so I'm doing it anyways. Um, and it feels a little impulsive sometimes, just to randomly do stuff without having any like plausible explanation for it. But I think that that's the beauty of the permission, I suppose. For me personally, that's my experience with understanding um, these different concepts like human design and like astrological birth charting and gene keys as well. I know is starting to become more a thing that people understand what that is too. So, anyways, that's that. So I'd learned something about myself recently too. I'm gonna wash my face while I do this because what is it about cleansing your skin while you're talking? I don't know. I enjoy it. I mean, I talk to myself all the time. It's kind of nice to talk out loud, even if it is to a camera. But someone will hear it later, right? Maybe. um, I was learning about environments in human design, and this is pretty freaking cool. So, um, you can find out about your environment through genetic matrix, and then there's one of the things that you just toggle. I think it's not quantum that you want to be in anymore. It's something else. You'll know what I mean if you go look it up, but you can find it. It's there. And so I have an internal markets um, environment, and what that means is that it's inviting people into my space that share similar interests, or have something that is of value to me in some way. So I've been finding that to be really interesting too, of just learning and understanding that, because I am a highly selective individual. I'm really selective about spaces, orientation in spaces, my orientation, even if I sit like at a table, for example, and the dynamics of, if I'm sitting here, what's that relationship with the person sitting across the table? Like, I think about that stuff, right? Like, that's actually of a big deal to me. And to learn about that from like, being able to put it into words a little bit more with understanding human design, that that's an internal markets thing. And I definitely prefer it when people come to me. I like being the gatherer in a sense. I don't really like going out to other people necessarily. It gives me hardcore anxiety, which that may not necessarily be related to that, but it's like that. I would much prefer people come to me. It's like it keeps me in my environment. And I kind of think of it of like um, like if you're at like a really big market and there's, let's say, like a fortune teller or like a sage or something like that you're going to go in to see, but they're in their own space, right? So it's like people are coming into my space and I'm being selective if I want you in my space or not. And I'm pretty astute to knowing when I don't want you there and when I do want you there. And I've been finding that just accepting that a little bit more about myself to be super interesting. And just because I think I've always kind of like felt bad that, I don't like being around everyone. I think let's talk about interpersonal dynamics when it comes to this. Some people just drive me nuts, and it could just be even too like their energy is too much. They're exhausting. They're not, there's no like stimulation or no engagement there. And I find sometimes that I've always felt like there was something wrong with me because of that, where I was the one with the problem. I was the one that needed to fix that. And I've come to learn that, there's nothing wrong with having an experience like that. It's more just like making it work for you, because what works for you will work for everybody else. And I know that doesn't always sound like, well, yeah, but really? But I really do think that it does. Like, I think the more that someone honors their, which I saw a meme the other day, honors their authentic assholism, I think the better off we all will be, because we've developed this social nicety or this social conditioning where it's like you have to be nice to everyone even if you can't stand them. And while I do agree with that to a certain extent, like you don't want to be an idiot towards someone for no particular reason. You can just remove yourself from the situation, or have that person leave in like a mindful manner of like how you're doing it. Like leave your space is what I mean. um, but yeah, understanding like environment has been really interesting for me, just to like learn my particularness about stuff and not feel bad about it, where it's more or less like, no, that's actually you thrive the most when you're in an environment that is selective, and an environment that I selected. Like some people can just feel perfectly fine in any environment, and I always used to feel bad that I really struggled with that. And I think that that's made it that I've compromised things that are of value to me often because of that. Um, yeah, right down to even like decorating an apartment, right? Where it's like, I'm pretty particular and I will change the room around a lot in order to shift uh, the vibe of the room. Like, if the room doesn't feel right, I don't want to be in it. And if it's my apartment, then that's even worse. So, yeah, never compromise with stuff like that. If it's, I know it sounds like silly how like small it is, but it's actually a really big deal. And it's a big deal because it's you're optimizing your experience of reality, which in turn helps optimize for other people in some way, shape, or form. And then another part of my chart that I was understanding about too was the uh, my motivations and where that comes from. So I'm pretty sure I'm a desire motivation, I think is what it is. But anyways, irregardless of what exactly the term was, I found it really cool because I love the ability to take pieces of information and optimize them, like put them together in a way that's better. And I think that's why I'm really good at like formulating skincare products, for example, right now, and more supplements soon. That I can take the idea and I can see what other people have done, um, but I can also see how they can be made better. And that's something that, at first I was like, oh, Jill, like, you're just such a bitch. Like, you judge the shit out of all this stuff. And, I think judgment is a quality if it's used correctly, right? Like, there's low forms of judgment, and then there's higher forms of judgment, which are more optimization as opposed to a judgment, in my opinion. And I think that's where it's like I really do excel at that if I'm given the opportunity to do so, and if I can get out of my own head of like what that means, right? So it's like I can take a lineup of different types of skincare products, research the shit out of like every single ingredient to like why they put those things in there, what exactly is the function of that ingredient in there, and then I can make it better. And I think that that's the new and improved concept is where I thrive the most. Being able to take all of the information and boil it down into something that hasn't been made yet, but is inspired from things that I've absorbed and seen in my environment. Now, I will say, if you can relate to this, that there are some downsides with that situation, with that concept, if you're not mindfully aware of what you're doing or how you're doing it. And what I mean by that is, sometimes you have to be really careful that you're not copying or mimicking other people, which I have admittedly gotten in trouble with before, not with product formulations, but with branding. In the beginning, which I don't know if again, if you guys have seen that I've gone through a number like progressions of what my branding for the Cole skincare line and supplement line looks like. And I look back at that and think like, man, like I'm so unoriginal. I can't believe that I did that, kind of like feeling bad. But then I realized that it's because I saw something that was working and then I tried to make it better by making it my own, but I didn't optimize it enough to make it like actually my own or to make it unique. And I think that that's where, sometimes it's even a subconscious thing where I'm seeing, and then I'm seeing what's working for other people, and then I take that and I try to optimize it. But if I'm not mindful of where I'm getting my information from, or where I'm getting the concept from, it will negatively influence, which I'm impacting, right? I am impacting, and sometimes impacting isn't always a positive experience. So you have to be mindful about that as well. So another thing that I had been learning in my chart is parts of the ego center. So if you have a defined ego, then you'll probably relate to some of the stuff that I'm about to say. Um, I have a defined ego in human design. So it's connected because I'm a manifester in human design. I'm a splenic manifester. So I have a defined root connected to a defined spleen, connected to a defined ego, connected to a defined throat. And those are all my defined centers. And so it's like I have the get up and go. I have the movement from like a bit of motor energy, but like not sacral energy. So I can get shit done. I really can. But when I'm burnt out, it's like, don't even bother talking to me because I'm done. But with a defined ego, and some of the activated channels that I have there, it's very much so like a talking out of my experience thing. And I always felt like that was, I don't know, like selfish to talk about yourself, and then I couldn't, sometimes I just always felt bad because, I actually enjoy hashing out my experience. And I think, I really like doing this right now. Will anyone listen to this? I have no idea. But I'm getting great enjoyment out of it. So the whole idea of like talking about my experiences, the I haves, the I ams, that's me. Like that comes natural to me, which, has always been like something I'm like, oh man, like, you're so not full of yourself. I don't want to say that. I'm definitely not full of myself. I think I could probably be more full of myself. But, just very like in my own head about things, which I do have inner vision as well in human design, which, is part of that situation as well. But I think it's like, where your pain points are or where your insecurities lie are actually your superpowers if you can learn to leverage them in an advantageous way. And yeah, I'm still learning about that. I'm going to maybe continue to talk about it. I don't know. Does this have anything to do with skincare specifically? Absolutely not. So who knows if anyone will actually listen. Again, there's my insecurities coming out. I'm also like, okay, this is another thing about with the human design and the manifestor thing is just to name the experience. Like informing to me is not really anything I understand. I think as a female in, a patriarchal society, I'm not clear on that. I don't really know what that looks like. And, we're all kind of marked by our conditioning of, our upbringings and what we see in the world. So, informing to me has always been like a being bossy. And it doesn't have to be. What I've been learning more lately is that, informing has a lot to do with naming the experience. So, that's been something I've been trying to do as well, is basically just name my experience. So naming my experience was just basically telling you that I'm super like unsure if anyone's ever going to listen to this. And also naming my experience. It's like being open and honest with how, like, what is actually going on. And sometimes it's not going to make sense. Again, that's for me personally, because I have splenic authority where I'm going to say shit and I'm not going to know why. Right. And sometimes it feels super impulsive where it's like, you need to think before you act a little bit more. But what these general rules that we have in the world do not pertain to everybody. Like the just do it, hustler mentality type of thing, just as an example, is more of like a manifester thing than anything else. Like, a generator may not necessarily understand the full concept of that when 70% of the population, you know what I mean? There's just certain like approaches or ways that we've been like taught that, okay, if you want to be successful, you have to do it this way. It's like, well, no, that works for like, a certain subset of the population in a certain way if it's done correctly. It doesn't work for everybody. So yeah, anyways, what I'm getting at here is that, what am I getting at? That was a tangent for sure. I'm really nervous about people who I like or enjoy seeing like some things that, like seeing this, for example, because this is something I'm deeply passionate about. This is something I'm really interested in. But what if they don't like it? Am I going to push them away? Are they going to think that I'm weird? Stuff like that. It makes me kind of insecure. I notice that about myself too. The more that I develop an interest like in somebody, for example, I get more insecure about the things that I have put out into the world. Because I feel like it makes me realize how vulnerable I put myself when I note it, like when I'm like, oh my goodness, like, oh, this person might see this thing that I did. Yeah, anyways, just saying it out loud. One of my insecurities. Yeah, I don't think I have anything more to say about this. I think as a lesson, is something that the take home from everything that I'm saying is that the experience of reality is different for every single one of us. And so I don't think that, there's necessarily any like right or wrong. There's also no guidebook. Like understanding human design doesn't like, it's to help you bring more self-awareness to yourself. It's not that, oh, I'm this energy type, so I have to behave this way. That's not really how it's supposed to work. I mean, you can experiment with that if you want to. But I have a fascination in listening to people, and I think that's why I really like vlogs, and I know reality TV has become more of a thing too. And I actually enjoy that stuff because I like witnessing someone's experience of life. And I think we can all learn from each other, even if it's just like a little thing here and there. But yeah, I think it's a really big deal to have the experience to be able to do that. And I think it's like we're all mirrors of each other as well. So what I see in one person inspires me to learn more about myself in a certain way, or is something that I see about myself or whatever, right? Something that I can learn from or just bring awareness to. Anyways, thank you for listening to me. I hope that was insightful for you guys. Or if it's not, then whatever. But yeah, maybe I'll try to do these a bit more. I'm not very consistent with how I do things, and I'm giving myself permission to not be, because I just realized that's not in my nature to do. So yeah, I might do some more of these. I might not. We'll see. But anyways, thank you guys for being here, and I'll talk to you soon.